name is Shabana Mahmood. I'm the Member of Parliament for Birmingham Ladywood constituency. I was first elected in 2010 and I am a Labour Member of Parliament. So I'm a Brummie, born and bred. Birmingham has always been my home, but my family originate from Kashmir, from the Pakistani bit of Kashmir. And my dad and my granddad came to this country in the 1960s. My dad was a teenager, and we've always lived in the same part of Birmingham ever since. And like a lot of people, first generation immigrants, they made their home here in order to work, and my granddad and my dad supported our family back in South Asia. I was born, I have a twin brother, so we were both born in Birmingham, as were the rest of my siblings. For a period of our early life, we lived in Saudi Arabia, because my dad's a civil engineer, and so he got work for a British company out in Saudi, working in the desert. So I had a bit of my life there. The rest of the time I've always been here. I'm one of 4 children. As I said, I've got a twin brother, and then I have a younger brother and a sister. And my life dream was to be a barrister. So I don't know if anybody remembers the programme Kavanagh QC, but I wanted to be Kavanagh QC when I was a kid. And that's the thing I always dreamt of doing. And so long before I became a politician, I was a barrister. That's the dream that I pursued. So I went to local schools in Birmingham, Blakesley Hall Junior School. For the short period of my life that we lived in Saudi Arabia with the rest of my family, I went to a tiny school out in the city of Taif, which was just full of the children of British and American expats. So I didn't really, learn anything about Saudi culture, or I didn't learn to speak Arabic. It was all in English. But once we were home in Birmingham full time with the rest of my family, I went to school in Brum. I went to my local school, state school, Small Heath School, which is in the constituency that I represent today. I failed 11 plus, so I did take the 11 plus because Birmingham still has a grammar school system. And I think I was one of the students that was expected to pass it, and then I didn't, which was a bit of a disappointment to me and my family. I got over it pretty quickly, and now, of course, I often joke as a Labour politician that, failing the 11 plus is like my greatest ever achievement, half jokingly. But as my 11-year-old self, I was pretty crushed. But I went to my local school, which was just up the road from where me and my family lived, and I absolutely thrived at Small Heath School. I had brilliant teachers who were just really amazing for my self-confidence, who made sure that I challenged myself and, always did lots of work to find out things I needed to know to pursue my dream of being a barrister. I was really, really well supported at Small Heath School, and I had a magical 5 years there. And Mr. Hewison, my form tutor for the 5 years I was at that school, played a massive part in my life, encouraging me to go forward. And he's one of the reasons why I had the confidence to go for Oxford, which is where I ended up doing my undergraduate degree as a lawyer. Yeah, my secondary school, most of the people that went to Small Heath School were from the local area, and therefore most people looked like me, were from the same family background as me, hailed from the same part of Kashmir mostly as myself and my family did. So I was very used to being with people with, similar challenges in life. Me and my friends were always trying to, wear different clothes to what our parents wanted us to wear, all the little trials and tribulations you can have as a young Asian or young Muslim girl growing up in sort of 80s and 90s Birmingham. Then for my A-levels, I moved to a different school. So I actually ended up going to a grammar school for my A-levels, the same grammar school I failed to get into as an 11-year-old. So that was an interesting experience. But that was much more mixed. So I had a much bigger class differential between different students, and obviously many more people who were not Muslim, not brown like me. But I did well at that school. I think I never really felt like I quite fitted in because I was so much a product of Small Heath in Birmingham, and that was so ingrained in my personality. In a way, going there, I made some great friends, but I was there in order to get the additional support I needed to be able to apply to Oxford. So I really thrived in an atmosphere where there were lots of people like myself, and then the challenge of obviously having people that are different to me, and I know that shaped my personality in a really positive way. I think that's impacted on my ability to be a good representative of people today. But I wouldn't give up those Small Heath School days for anything. It was my first night at Lincoln College, Oxford. I walked into what's called the JCR, which is the Junior Common Room. It's effectively like the student union of my college at Oxford. And I was the only non-white face in the room, and certainly the only Muslim in the whole of the college. There had been, I think, one other Muslim student, a young woman, but she had just left, or she was just about to leave, and then there was me. And it was a shock to the system. And I tried to just sort of play it cool, as you do in a new environment, but it was a shock to the system, because even when I had changed schools in Birmingham and gone from Small Heath to King Edward's Camp Hill, Birmingham's still a very diverse city, and there's always lots of people like yourself and lots of people different, but people are comfortable with difference. At Oxford, I did stick out a lot. And I had to sort of develop a sort of internal mechanism for, projecting confidence and like I completely belonged in this environment when I didn't necessarily feel it on the inside. And so I learned to project very positive body language quite quickly. I, made a point of forcing myself to chat to everybody, and I made a fantastic group of friends. So I had a really lovely time, and I've made friends for life, and it shaped me really positively, but I had to really work at that. And there were still moments though where I just thought, God, I will never belong in this place. And then still moments which really knocked my confidence. And then I just used to always have to pick myself up and just keep going, because I was very single-minded about knowing I wanted to do well, because I was so desperate to be a barrister and succeed in life and make my parents proud. And in a way, having that sort of desire, that family desire to, do really well, meant I just forced myself to override all of the other ways in which Oxford made me feel like an alien, basically. But I did feel like an alien a lot of the time. I think the lack of diversity in the student body at Oxbridge is a problem, and I think it's been a problem for many years. When I was a student at Oxford, with the experiences I had and all the ways in which Oxford as an environment, whilst being great for me academically and socially, just made me feel like I didn't quite belong. I think as a student, I thought, well, I've got a responsibility to make this experience better for other students. I've got to firstly encourage more people like myself and from other backgrounds to apply in the first place. I need to mentor people to get through that interview process, because, if you've never had something like that before, it's a real challenge. And I just focused really practically on what I could personally do, because I, as a Muslim, believe I have to account to God for every opportunity and gift that I've been given in my life. And I saw going to Oxford as a gift, and I wanted to be able to justify having that gift, but also to give something back. I feel that as a religious responsibility. And so I mentored so many students. I helped people with their interview preparation. I did open days, and I made a point of telling my story in all of the ways in which I had sometimes had a bad day, to try and encourage more applications. So I tried to play my part practically. But then as a politician, I was Shadow Higher Education Minister for a period in the time when Ed Miliband was leader of the Labour Party. You look at the figures over a longer period of history and you think, God, this institution just has not made any discernible progress in having more people from a BME background. And then my job was to challenge them politically. And it is difficult actually to challenge them politically, because they are very long-standing old institutions, and they say that the blame starts actually not with them, but with what happens to poorest students from, the moment they're born, and that the system lets them down, and they're just picking up the pieces when people are 18. And for a long time, I think the political, those of us who are political activists have really struggled to get past the narrative that Oxford and Cambridge have put out, which is so strong about how the failures start at birth and at nursery school level rather than at 18. I think what's happened in the last year or so is really positive, because finally we've been able to say, no, that is true. What you're saying has truth in it. Failures do start at birth for the poorest students in our society, but actually you as institutions can do more. And I loved my time at Oxford. I thrived at Oxford. I think it's an incredible institution. I treasure it, I value it, but until it is more diverse and gives more of a chance to students from the poorest backgrounds to also make that institution better, I don't think that I can stop challenging them and trying to force them to get with the programme in the 21st century. I grew up in a Labour family. My dad in particular was very active in Labour politics, and from a young age he would take me out with him, leafleting, door knocking. I'd been to so many local election campaigns. Even before I properly understood what elections were all about, I was out there on the doorstep with a Labour sticker asking people to vote Labour. So Labour politics had always been part of my life, but it was almost like embedded in the natural rhythm of our family life. I didn't sit there actively thinking, that's my dream, I'm going to be an MP one day. I wanted to be governor, I wanted to be a barrister, I wanted to be in court fighting cases. That was the thing that I saw my job as. And then I guess when you're active in politics at a street level, at a campaign level, you know, you sort of see politicians, local councillors, MPs, MEPs in action, and then you sort of think, well, maybe I could do that job. And I think I probably thought that quite a bit, but without really planning for a career in politics. And in a way, my sort of career didn't happen in a planned way. I was happily working, I was qualified as a barrister. I was at a point in my life where I was trying to decide, because my professional working life was in London, but the entirety of my family, my social life, everything was in Birmingham. And so I was split between the two cities. And I was trying to decide, right, I've got to commit to one or the other, and then base my legal career there as well. And at the period where I was at home trying to work out what my next step was going to be, the Labour Party was selecting its candidate for what is my home seat of Birmingham Ladywood. And the chance to represent the place you grew up in, the place you live in, the place where all your family are, where everybody knows you, is such an honour. It is such a rare thing, and it's just such a privilege that I just thought I can't not have a shot. I didn't expect to get selected as a Labour candidate, if I'm completely honest. I was pretty young. I was only in my mid-20s, and I figured other Labour Party members would think, you know, wait it out for a bit, Shabana, come back in 20 years when you've got your legal career behind you. But then I won, because once I'd made the commitment that I was going to have a shot, you know, I really did commit to it, because I guess I was motivated by the fact that this is the place I love, this is my home, and you just bring a different flavour of passion to your politics when it's your own home, your own people, your own community. Everybody who I have grown up with lives there, and I want to be able to do something to make the lives of those people better. When I got selected as a Labour candidate, because I think at that point only Shabana Ali, my colleague, who's now obviously got elected at the same time as me, she's also a Member of Parliament, but we were the only two Muslim women that had been selected at that point. And so just the fact of having a Muslim woman selected in a seat that was a Labour seat that everybody was expecting Labour to hold with a good majority, that was already of interest and of note. I came through a tough selection battle, and you know, people were surprised by that, because as I say, they weren't expecting me to win. So there was a lot of interest in me, and then a lot of scrutiny. And so I had to learn on the job and fly by the seat of my pants. But I decided I was just going to make a very personal pitch, you know, because this is my home, these are the people I love, this is the community I'm from. I wanted to be able to show them why I care about representing that place. So I ran a very hyper-localised grassroots campaign, introducing myself, trying to get across why I care about Birmingham Ladywood, and then, you know, just being out every single day. From the moment I got selected, I have been out on the doors in Ladywood constituency. Somewhere I have been every day campaigning, talking to people. So when I was elected, myself, Shabana Ali and Yasmin Qureshi became the first Muslim women ever to be elected to the House of Commons. Soon after I was elected, I was in that first cohort of newly elected MPs that Ed Miliband, as leader, promoted to the Labour Party front bench. I made a conscious decision that I was going to use my shadow ministerial responsibilities as another aspect of my activism and my campaigning. And so when I was in the Home Office looking at issues around counter-terrorism, I wanted to be able to involve different communities in shaping the Labour Party politician. There's a lot of challenges when you're a new shadow minister, and you're not from a political background, in the sense that, you know, I had never worked in Parliament before. My first day in Parliament was as a Member of Parliament, which was not the position that some of my other colleagues were in. They'd been in and out of Westminster for a long time, so I was starting from a different place. And I remember drafting my first ever amendment to a piece of counter-terrorism legislation whilst on the Virgin train service from Birmingham to London, trying to work out how to draft it. Even though I'd been a lawyer, when you're the practitioner, it's a different skill set. When you're a lawmaker, it's a very different skill set. And I remember I was always going to see the table office and the parliamentary clerks here to get advice about how to do things, how to operate with parliamentary procedure. Nobody gives you any training. You have to learn on the job, and you're in charge of what you focus on. But I wanted to do it properly. I have a sense of pride in my work, and I wanted to make sure I did everything the right way. So it's just a very intense period of learning, of just trying to cope with lots of different challenges. And you soon learn that you have to prioritise and just be super organised, and frankly just get less sleep, which is basically what I've done throughout my political career. I haven't had a lie-in 8 years. Whenever I've held a shadow ministerial position for the party, I've always tried to bring the voice of the people of Ladywood into how the Labour Party formulates its response or its policy. When I was in the Shadow Home Office, we're going back to 2010, a period when the debate in the Labour Party was around control orders, or we were against the policy of changing them into TPIMs, and I was making arguments about the perspective of the Muslim community and how control orders operate in practice, and how to find a halfway house between what had been the Labour policy and what we felt it needed to evolve into. I was trying to, in the early days, get a better quality of debate around immigration. I think actually for all of us in politics, a better quality of debate on immigration is like the holy grail. We all keep trying and failing, but I represent a constituency that's almost 70% non-white. I represent a lot of people. They're not all Asian Muslims like me either. They're from every community and lots of other religious communities as well. And I was able to at least bring their perspective, so that in trying to assuage the needs of the majority community, when we're formulating Labour policy, we're also hearing the voices of the minority communities represented by myself and my constituents. So, always being in the room, trying to get a different perspective across, because Labour, in my early time as a politician, but also now, we are a national party, but sometimes on certain issues it's easy for the voices of minority communities to be crowded out or almost to be an afterthought, and that's for a party that's very good at representing different communities, but you still have to be in the room, and you still have to remind people of what our side looks like and what our perspective is. So those were the sorts of things I started pushing straight away, and 8 years in, even now as a backbencher, there's still the same arguments that I make. My whole thrust of my political career is about what happens in Ladywood. How do these policies play out in Ladywood? What do they mean for the communities I represent? And whenever I've been in the room as a shadow minister, I've always tried to say, this is how it impacts on my people. My greatest personal achievement is that this year in April I ran the London Marathon. I got injured 8 miles in, but I limped my way for 18 miles to finish the marathon, and I think I was mad to do it because I'm still not recovered from it, but I'm very proud that I did. My greatest achievement politically, I would say it's the local, the bread and butter work of being a member of parliament, doing my constituency surgeries and they sound like small victories that you have for your constituents, whether it's on a housing issue, whether it's on an immigration issue, but the combination and the whole range of those small victories, I think are things that I feel most proud of, that give me the most satisfaction, because for the people I represent, that could be the difference between having a roof over their heads or not, and that's what I feel most proud of. I believe for Parliament to be truly representative of our country, it needs to look like our country, and so we need more candidates and people coming forward from BME communities, and we need more women from BME communities in particular to come forward. And the thing I would say is this is a really challenging job, but it's also immensely satisfying, and it's always an honour and privilege. It's not really a job, actually. It's like a vocation. It's a labour of love, but it's such an honour and a privilege to be a representative of people. Soon after I got elected, an elderly Muslim man knocked on the door of my house. He'd asked around to say, where does Shabana Mahmood live? And he rocked up at my house and he just said, I feel like my own daughter has been elected. And it was such a lovely, lovely, lovely moment. It stayed with me all of these years, but I realised that it matters to people who, see themselves reflected back in the seat of power. And that has a power and a poignancy that, can inspire generations for years to come. And so if you feel you can make a difference, just imagine somebody somewhere will be looking at you, seeing their daughter or their sister, and it's a really big deal for them.